Greetings, Honors English students. Just checking in with you guys, and I'm going to do a little mini lecture with you guys today. I'll try not to go too long with this, and it's going to be over O Pioneers mostly, because we didn't get a chance to finish that in class. So I'm going to ask that you guys all watch this video and then make a response, and I'll put those instructions in Google Classroom. But first of all, I hope you guys are doing well. We're doing well at my house. You can see I've got a different setup today. My office is at my kitchen table, but a lot of people are in our great room throughout the day. So I'm trying to do this in the morning. So, we've been stuck in the house, mainly just grocery shopping, getting a few supplies, getting prepped for this whole event, because we're gonna be in here for, looks like all of April. So, we're ready. Hope you guys are too at your houses. First thing I want to talk to you guys about is O Pioneers, and I'm gonna go over like some of the key ideas that I wanted you guys to understand as we finished up the whole thing. Now, we started our discussion of the whole book by talking about land and property and wealth and those things, and I stressed to you guys that it didn't seem like that was a topic that would relate to high school kids so much. Well, things have changed. Things have changed a whole lot. A month or so later, and here we are, bunkered down in our homes and kind of survival mode for a lot of us. People going crazy buying toilet paper, which is kind of ridiculous, but who knows? But those people who are preppers now don't seem so crazy, do they? They've been in survival mode for a whole lot. So it seems like those topics that we're talking about, land, property, and wealth, it's more relevant than ever. And some of the other topics that we've talked about, family, what sets up the frontier? Well, it's not explorers that do it. It's the families that go there afterwards and settle, and have kids that are born in a place. And when they're born in that place, they identify with that place, and that place becomes their home and something they'd be willing to live and to fight for, and sometimes die for. And you guys, I hope you are enjoying some of these articles and maps I've been linking to you guys. Just look at them, read them. You can comment if you want to. I'll tell you if I want you to comment on something where I'm going to give you a grade over it, but try to get as involved as much as you can. I won't overwhelm you with a lot of work, but I probably will be giving you guys some nice little links to look at and to kind of round out some of the things that we're studying, like those maps of Chicago and New York City and Cincinnati. It's kind of interesting to see how we were a rural nation up until like the 20s, late 1800s going into the 1900s, the 20th century. I always tell kids, my grandmother was born on my dad's side in 1901, and on my mom's side, I think she was born in the 1800s actually. And when both of my grandmothers were born on both sides, there were a lot of states that weren't yet in the Union, and there was a lot of territory out west that was still like literally considered frontier. And so I think that's kind of interesting. I'm not that old. I know you guys think I am, but I'm not. And I have links back into history when the nation was very different. And this urbanization that's taken place is something that's way more recent in historical terms. We're talking about last 100 years. That's when this big shift towards giant cities and bigger cities took place. And you guys should be asking why. Why is that happening? Why is that happening is, the founders like Jefferson, that letter that to James Madison, he had a very different idea of what he thought America would be. A bunch of landowners, small landowners. And we talked about some of those things in class when we talked about this early. But a lot of these topics we've been talking about in O Pioneers are more relevant than ever. Love and marriage. I mean, who are you guys hanging up with right now? You're hanging with your parents who got married. You're hanging out with your family. And that's who you're bunkered down with for the most part. That's where people are. And that says something about when push comes to shove, what's really important. It's a big theme of the book, O Pioneers. Family's important. Alexandra makes sacrifices for the family. John Bergson makes sacrifices for the family. Alexandra, even though she's a pioneer in sexual roles, she kind of takes that leadership position. What does she want in the end? She needs Carl. She's got wealth. She needs Carl. She needs that family. She needs someone to share it with. Another thing I think is really interesting about that story, the frontiersmen, the people that went out there, the settlers, the pioneers, they were always in survival mode. It's harder to survive in those places. And it's interesting now, what are a lot of Americans and people throughout the world, but our focus on America, what are we doing right now? We're in survival mode. People are concerned about having enough food. They're concerned with, taking care of their houses, making payments. Everything's kind of shifted because of this whole thing. And this book relates to a lot of the concerns that we're having right now, as does most literature. That's why I stress to you guys the importance of reading. Good literature relates to life. It may be a fictional story, but it tells a story of life. So keep reading. I know some of you, I've heard comments, some of you guys are reading a bunch on your own. Great. I love to hear that. You don't just have to read stuff for class. Read your own stuff too. I'm reading my own stuff too. So keep that up. I'm happy to hear that. What I want to do right now is something kind of get back into the routine of what the kinds of things we did in class, and I want to interact with the text and the last part of the story, and that is the last page, like the last page or so, how the whole story ends up with old pioneers and Alexandra and Carl, and they're the last ones standing. Which we talked about love and marriage. Well, this story was about love and marriage, but which is the last one that's standing? The one that's built on a lot of things that are solid. It's built more on just eros and romance. It's built on that part of a relationship, but also friendship, storge, those things we talked about, common interests, these kinds of things. Carl and Alexandra have known each other their whole lives, and there's a deep bond between them, and they're the last relationship standing. As you guys think about your situations and love and marriage for the future, and think about those building blocks. The more building blocks that you have to build a relationship on, the better. And let's look at this. A place I'm going to be looking at is page 121. It's like the last 2 pages of the story, and it's just Alexandra and Carl. And I'm going to read it. We'll talk about a couple things here. I'm going to start with a passage where I believe it's it's Carl and Alexandra talking. And here we go. Of course not, my dearest. I think I know how you feel about this country as well as you do. It's coming back to this whole idea of the land. Carl took her hand in both his own and pressed it tenderly. Yes, I still feel that way, though Emil is gone. And again, even though there's been so many bad things that have happened in this story, her, Frank going to jail, her trying to get him out, Emil dying, Marie dying, the hardships, all the work, but in the end it's all worth it because there's this love of the land. There's this love of being connected to nature. And Alexandra is particularly in tune with nature more than other characters. Maybe Ivar maybe that's why she had such a strong relationship with Ivar, because he had a special connection with nature. Now let's keep going. Yes, I still feel that way, though Emil is gone. When I was on the train this morning and we got near Hanover, I felt something like I did when I drove back with Emil from the river that time in the dry year. I was glad to come back to it. I lived here a long time. There is great peace here, Carl, and freedom. I thought when I came out of that prison, where poor Frank is, that I should never feel free again, but I do here. Alexandra took a deep breath and looked off into the red west. You belong to the land, Carl murmured, as you've always said, now more than ever. Yes, now more than ever. You remember what we once said about the graveyard and the old story writing itself over? Only it is we who write it with the best we have. They paused on the last ridge of the pasture, overlooking the house and the windmill and the stables that marked the side of John Bergson's homestead. On every side, the brown waves of the earth rolled away to meet the sky. Lou and Oscar can't see those things, said Alexandra suddenly. Suppose I do will my land to their children. What difference will that make? The land belongs to the future, Carl. That's the way it seems to me. How many of the names on the county clerk's plat will be there in 50 years? I might as well try to will the sunset over there to my brother's children. We come and go, but the land is always here. And the people who love it and understand it are the people who own it, for a little while. Carl looked at her wonderingly. She was still gazing into the west, and her face there was that exalted serenity that sometimes came to her at moments of deep feeling. The level rays of sinking sun shone in her clear eyes. Why are you thinking of such things now, Alexandra? I had a dream before I went to Lincoln, but I will tell you about that afterward, after we are married. It will never come true now in the way I thought it might. She took Carl's arm and they walked toward the gate. How many times we have walked this path together, Carl? How many times will we walk it again? Does it seem to you like coming back to your own place? Do you feel at peace here with the world? I think we shall be very happy. I haven't any fears. I think when friends marry, they are safe. We don't suffer like those young ones. Alexandra ended with a sigh. They had reached the gate before Carl opened it. He drew Alexandra to him and kissed her softly on her lips and on her eyes. She leaned heavily on his shoulder. I am tired, she murmured. I have been very lonely, Carl. They went into the house together, leaving the divide behind them under the evening star. Fortunate country that is one day to receive hearts like Alexandra's into its bosom, to give them out again in the yellow wheat and the rustling corn and the shining eyes of youth. I don't know about you, but the end of that story always gets me. It's beautiful, it's touching, and then it says in the end that Alexandra will be taken up by nature. In the last page, nature's a big part of the story. We come and go, but the land's still here. And someday they're going to die and their bodies will be buried in the earth and they'll become a part of the elements. That's a big theme in the story, being connected to nature. And this whole survival thing that she talks about at the end. As we think about this whole story, you can see so many things that we've talked about connect to you guys, and connect to a lot of these things that we're dealing with right now. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned some things. I hope you relate to some things from the story. Now, the article that I gave you about millennials and home ownership, I haven't read the comments yet. I'm going to read those today, and I'm going to respond to those on Google Classroom. So hope you guys have a great day. I know it's a little longer than I had expected, but that's all right. All the messages won't be this long, but I will do a few mini lectures to kind of help you guys understand some of the things that we're talking about. So you guys have a great day. Looks like the sun's shining beautifully outside. Get outside, get some fresh air, get some sun. That vitamin D, it's good for you. Eat some good food. Take care.